We're going to have a battle. We're going to do a rap battle. Ready? Give me a beat. Welcome to another edition of Are You Shitting Me?
A podcast that dives into random topics that may surprise and educate you. It maybe make you laugh along the way.
I'm your host, Len, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Chuck. How are you, man?
Good. How you doing, Len?
Good. Welcome to this podcast takeover. We kicked out Brett and Aaron.
Yeah, it's done.
Show them how it's done. Yeah. Well, let's bring in today's special guest. Brett, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on my show.
Aaron, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me on.
First time caller, long time listener.
That's right.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the show.
I'm excited about this episode so much so.
So am I.
You aren't prepared.
I don't know why you keep saying that. I have a whole set of notes here, Brett, that I spent into the early morning hours putting together.
What are we talking about?
So today we're talking about guitarists, top 3 guitarists, and some honorable mentions.
Who's your favorite classical guitarist, Chuck?
That'd probably have to be Billy Joel. He really knows how to rock that classical.
Billy Joel probably is a fantastic guitar player.
From what I understand, he does play guitar, does he not?
I don't know.
I think he does.
Apparently, I'm not as big a fan.
I think
I heard it was the
seen him in
banjo.
Concert when you folled him around that one summer that you probably would have saw him play.
You remember that summer?
The summer of Billy Joel, yeah, before
The Uptown Girl Tour, man.
Nice. All right.
We got to go with an episode beer here first. We can't start talking about guitarists without at least taking a sample. There's a precedence we have set here, man. I am super excited about this one today. So we are drinking Cigar City Brewing from Tampa, Florida, has a Maduro Brown Ale. It is 5.5% ABV, and someone told me about it. It sounds really good. So I thought it would be an interesting one for us to try.
Has anybody tried this before?
I have not.
Nope.
So it says that's brown ale boasts notes of semi-sweet chocolate, toffee, and hints of fresh coffee. Oh, perfect for
That is a good
morning
breakfast,
thing. Yeah.
morning.
Whatever beer.
Brewed with flaked oats to add depth of character. This sounds like it might be a good breakfast beer.
It smells like a brown ale to me, so that's good.
Well, success.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Okay.
Malty. Very malty.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's stronger than I was expecting.
Yeah.
It'll hit you a little bit.
A little bit more of a kind of a bitter taste.
You know what's not really good is when you brush your teeth right before you're about to try a new beer.
I'm glad to hear that you do brush your teeth. That's great.
Once a week.
Len, you're a brown ale kind of guy, aren't you?
I like brown ales. This one's decent. The flavors listed on the can, I would say, are very subtle. Nothing overpowering. Standard, decent, average brown ale.
What's the brown ale that you normally like?
Newcastle was my gateway drug into craft beer.
Bass ale, did you drink that too?
Didn't drink Bass ale
English.
too much.
I did with you, Chuck, all the time.
Bass.
Killian's?
Yeah.
Killian's Red was the other one. Yep.
was
Three
craft
kind of
beer.
beers at the bar for a while. It was Killian's Red,
Yeah.
Bass Ale, Newcastle.
Yeah. Aaron and I touched on that in the previous episode. It was that like
The honey brown. Yeah.
Oh,
that
yeah.
was really
Oh,
good.
honey brown ale. Yep.
I think that was my
the-
favorite brown ale. This one's not bad. I'm not honestly a big fan of brown ales for the most part. I like Scotch ales quite a bit.
Right,
Drinkable for sure.
Yep. I don't do brown ales very often, so this is good.
Yeah, good stuff. Definitely is a good one for the morning. So, all right, guitarist.
I was wondering what actually makes a great guitarist. Like, do you have, Len, I'm looking at you on this one. What is the criteria for judging a great guitarist?
Well, when I started coming up with my list, I thought about a few different factors. One was obviously they have to have a high level of technical skill and ability to play, improvisation, understanding of guitar theory, all that kind of stuff. I was looking for guitarists who had two things. One was they had to have their own unique, distinguishable sound. That if you heard it without knowing it was them, you would say, "Oh, that sounds like a riff from whatever band or whatever guitarist." And then the second criteria for me was that, and this one threw some of my top 10 off a little bit, but I thought it was important. The band doesn't exist without them.
Interesting.
That you just mentioned someone that understands theory, and I don't necessarily think that pertains to rock and roll guitarists, because a lot of them don't understand theory. A lot of them don't even know how to read music; they just read tablature.
Right.
So they get by without it. Innovation. Somebody who comes up with new material all the time, because you can have a guitarist who has a good couple songs and then just average ones after that. Yeah.
So you got somebody young who's a really good guitarist, like they're 18. Let's say it was back in the 70s, 80s. And now maybe they're not as innovative. Are they still a great guitarist, or just because they were? And that one song, because I'm thinking of, I got a couple people in mind that was the scenario, or people died. They died young, and do they still measure up? That that kind of thing.
I think for me, if we're talking about the greatest guitarist of all time, there has to be a longevity factor. There has to be like a being prolific over time factor.
But that could be their impact even over time, though. It doesn't necessarily have to be specifically that they played long, but their impact was felt for a long time, I think.
For sure. Yeah. My number one guitarist, spoiler alert, only played for a few years, but the impact has been just incredible over time.
Can I guess?
Go ahead.
Jimi Hendrix.
Ding, 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 ding. That's my number one. Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah, I got him in my top three. I didn't actually rank them 1 through 3. I just have my top 3.
Yeah, I would say my top 3 could go in any order.
I would argue my list, every one of these players have been my top guitarist at one point or another in my life. Like I just focus on them, listen to them, and then just like really dive into what they're doing.
Like you have more bass guitarists than I will.
I actually had a hard time making this list here, to be honest, because I don't know that I ever really ranked guitarists in my head as top or not. I don't know why. I focus a lot more on songwriting and the song structure and lyrics. Even though I play guitar, I'm not a lead guitarist. I'm always a rhythm guitarist, and I really focus more on the melody than anything else. So I had a hard time really diving into this. The bass players, I can tell you a whole list of who's 1, 2, and 3 for me.
Well, I think that's actually a point about who's one of the greatest guitarists. Like, does the rest of the band and maybe the lead singer influence how popular or how good everybody thinks that these guitarists are?
Well, I think with Jimi Hendrix, that he was it. I mean, he did have some different versions of his bands, 2, maybe even 3.
Right, but he was the focus. Yeah,
he was it though. He was the showman. He wrote all the songs for the most part. He did the rhythm. He did the lead. He was a blues musician on steroids.
Yeah,
and just sounds so effortless. Like he's not even trying.
Yeah,
I think his Star Spangled Banner Woodstock is just
that was very controversial at the time.
It was.
Some people thought they massacred it. Others thought it was.
And I'm on the side of that fucking rocked. I think that was awesome.
Yeah,
something that could never be imitated.
I mean, I think he's got other great performances, but that was just wow.
Mm-hmm. To Len's point, having that unique sound and tone, he was so experimental with stuff when he came out with everything. No one had heard anything like that before. And I think that's what made him really a strong guitarist. His style-wise, and like if you listen to him versus like Stevie Ray Vaughan, obviously they have a very similar sound and style. It could probably be argued that Stevie might be a more technically better player, because just the way he puts the stuff together, but it's all because of Jimi.
He was on a whole different level.
Yeah.
From everybody else at the time.
And he was kind of the first one like that, wasn't he? I mean, really, I guess Carl Perkins and some of those guys came out with some cool shit early on, but like, I don't know. I mean, I can't think of any other guitarist who was like so like other level before that.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't, if you listen to his catalog and you get more into him, I think people don't really understand what a true blues musician he was and how good he just played that. And it's so, if you listen to other blues guitarists, like he knows his stuff. He just expanded off that. I was going to say though, there is one guy that was doing some stuff before him that I found out, and that's Buddy Guy. He was doing a lot of stuff with the distortion, different tones, feedback. And I didn't even realize this until I started getting more into Buddy Guy. And he was around before Jimi Hendrix.
Absolutely, you're right.
And just a note, too, Jimi Hendrix died when he was 27. What an impact for a guy that was 27. You had every other rock and roll guitarist trying to be you, and trying to equivocate what you did or surpass you. And very few did.
Imagine if he would have had another 10, 20, 30 years to play.
Yeah.
Like,
all right, so we know Chuck and Len's favorite. Brett, what's yours?
Billy Joel. Yep.
called it. And you're out of the pot.
Can you mute that, please?
Eddie Van Halen, just one of my favorite guitarists. I think he was such a showman too when it came to that picking style. He was the focus of so many of the videos and whatnot. And it was just something. Picking had been around, but I don't think people knew it on a grand scale. You know,
tapping,
whatever,
yeah.
picking, tapping. You know what?
Well, he did have a unique.
Things,
there's a unique picking structure to him too, where he does like
A little chicken picking kind of thing going on there.
Yeah,
Tapping. I meant
tapping.
Yeah.
He wasn't the creator of it, but he certainly made it to what it was today.
Well, the guy tapped with both hands too on like the neck of the guitar. I don't think that tapping was a new thing, but he took it to a whole nother level.
He did.
I saw an interview with him one time, and he was trying to figure out how some of these players were playing so fast. He started doing a tap, and that was kind of like, oh, okay, I can do this here. And it was self-discovered. At least that was my impression from him. Now, obviously, other people may have done some of that too as well, but he definitely brought it to the mainstream.
Anybody else have Eddie Van Halen in their top?
I have Eddie.
He's on my top 10.
Top 10. All right.
He's in my top. You guys did top 3. I did top 4.
He's in my top 20.
He's in your top 20.
Yeah.
Who's done this? What are we doing here?
Clearly, the instructions were top 3, and then the rest of the top 10.
At the end of the it's top 4 for me.
I just listed out like 20. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna stop here, and then I went back through and chose my top 3, and then the rest of the 10. So he's not in my top 10. No.
All right.
Eddie Van Halen's not in your top 10?
No, I mean, he had a unique sound. How big of an impact was it across the board? It's a very specific sound. I think guitarists from today are influenced by him for sure. And I certainly was influenced by him. I listened to him. But for me, he didn't contribute as much to guitar beyond that. I hear him and I liked him, and that was what he did. And that's all we talked about him. What else did he do?
I guess I would just say that style, he showed what could be done with that style.
Mm-hmm.
And then rock and metal musicians took it. And ran with it.
Yeah.
And so if you listen to bands 3, 4, 5 years later after Eruption came out, the types of solos that guitar players were doing, I think drastically changed after that.
Yeah. You know, actually, now that I say it too, I forgot he also played the solo on Michael Jackson's Beat It, which was a really big crossover type of thing.
Yeah, I just want to add that before him, it was Jimi Hendrix, and that was what every rock guitarist idolized. And then once Eddie Van Halen came out, he changed the game for that. And certainly for hard rock, then going into metal, he became the guy that everybody wanted to be. They wanted to figure out what he was doing. And he talked about technical skill, and he knew theory. He played piano. He
classically trained.
Yeah, from his father, right? From what I understand, both of them, him and Alex. I just think he was one of those natural musicians all around. Mm-hmm. He was very innovative. He had some great fluidness and timing, and how he would lay down his rhythms and then his leads right over. It's pretty impressive.
I like Eddie Van Halen. I will just say, to try to wrap it up on him, I think that maybe it was also the popularity of Van Halen MTV videos that introduced people to him.
Yeah.
That really made him popular. And I'm not trying to take away, because I think, like I said, he's my top 3, but I think that all helped. And I think that's one of the things you can't. Everybody's best or favorite guitarist, there's a reason that they're one of your favorites.
Yeah.
And, that I think is one of the reasons that Eddie Van Halen is a favorite.
Like, he certainly had the tone of the band, but having David Lee Roth as a singer, it really was a complete full circle.
Yeah. Oh, they totally meshed really well.
Well, and like you said, right time, right place. You can't, MTV's just coming out. People are just getting into that kind of stuff, and they were a great band for that.
I think we could probably say that for many of the guitarists we talk about.
Guarantee we can. Now, I had read that one of Eddie Van Halen's main influences was Eric Clapton.
Over the years, I've tried to figure that out. I've read different articles. I've watched different interviews with him, and everybody asks him that. They're like, who are your biggest influences? And I think what they really want to hear from him is they want him to say Jimi Hendrix. And they'll ask him about him. He doesn't really have anything too much to say about him. He does mention Clapton when he was with Cream, and there's a couple like jazz musicians that he's into. But there's some, I remember watching one interview with him, and he simply stated, I don't really have anybody particular that was my biggest influence. I just created my own thing. So I always thought that was interesting.
I read an article about Jimi Hendrix saying that his favorite song ever was White Room, and that's a Clapton song.
I don't remember where it was in London, but all the major musicians had went. The guys like from Led Zeppelin, Clapton, I think some members of the Beatles, and they were all blown away from watching him and hearing him from the first time. They're like, "Who is this dude? Where'd he come from?" But so if you're impressing, all the major contenders at rock at that time, that's something in itself right there.
But I heard one time that like when Hendrix got invited to go to Woodstock, he was doing shows in like London or someplace over in Europe, and he had learned whatever Beatles album had just come out.
It was Sgt. Pepper's. Yeah.
And like in a day, he learned them all and was playing them. And that's what he was playing at the show.
Yeah.
To be there, that would have been awesome.
And I think that's kind of like that goes to his credit, like how he could do that with different songs, which I think is kind of odd. Going back to him, is that his notoriety didn't really come over in America first. It came over in England first.
Well, he started here and he struggled.
Yeah.
And then he went over to Europe, and that's when he kind of made it big.
Then when he came back, and now he's known as worldwide one of the best guitarists of all time.
And I think Woodstock, again, right place, right time for him. But,
right.
Yeah, in my opinion, that's what just,
And even then, that was the last day of Woodstock, and I think there was only 20 to 30,000 people left.
Yeah.
So the majority of everybody else had left because it got rained out and people died, and I don't know.
You're talking about Woodstock 99?
He was not there.
We're going to talk about that at some point in time.
All right. So does anybody have Eric Clapton in top 3, top 10?
Top 10.
Top 10. I got him top 10.
I got him top 10.
Top 20.
Aaron?
Wow. Top 20.
Yeah.
He's not in my top 10, no.
All right.
I don't really care for Eric Clapton. I never really cared for his music. I like White Room, and I liked The End of Layla.
Tears in Heaven.
No, I was never a huge fan of him, so I never really I recognize him as a good guitarist, but that's basically where it is. Like, I don't know that I'd really.
Yeah. All right. So, yes, Chuck.
Oh, I was just going to comment on Clapton if we're talking about.
Go ahead, Chuck.
Oh yeah, he's in my top 20.
Okay.
I think.
You got a top 20 now? Oh my God.
He's like, well, you know what? I got to measure up with Aaron here. Come on.
20. I just rolled with it.
Len, you'll be.
You guys have top 20. I have top 21.
He's got 20.
I've got a top 3, top 10, or rest of the top 10. I called it, and then I've got honorable mentions.
That's exactly what I.
Which is huge. I got a lot of people.
I got a lot of honorable.
I only have
mentions.
4.
I just want to comment on Clapton that he's. I mean, I think you do have to give him a lot of credit for in his pocket. He's really good in that blues pocket. He's got some really cool leads.
Yeah.
When he's with Cream, he was good. His later stuff, he did a lot of renditions of other people's songs, and that was pretty cool. He's been around for a long time now, and he's still going, and I think that's pretty impressive. And the one thing I would really like to give him credit to is he's really the one that made American blues popular, because look, the American blues artists were struggling.
I disagree.
They weren't really as popular until after Clapton started promoting them.
I think he might have revived it.
He did revive it. That's what I'm talking about. He revived blues because at that time, all the original blues artists had already been surpassed, and rock was in. Chuck Berry changed the game. And then not till years later when Clapton came back around.
Muddy Waters was still pretty big at that point. I mean, the 60s and 70s, he was huge still. Muddy Waters and those guys.
I don't think like he was when he started out, though. I think credit to kind of bringing that back. So.
Okay. Thanks, Chuck. That was good. All right. So before we get into like the other,
you want to go back to Billy Joel, guitarist? Is that right? You want to bring?
So before we reveal,
Billy Joel contribute to the blues that I don't know about, or?
Aaron, have we hit 2 of your top 3 yet?
No.
All right. So I think Len and I both have hit 2 of them. No?
I've just one of my top 3, Jimi Hendrix.
Jimi Hendrix is one of your top 3. Right. Chuck's one of your top 3.
Eddie Van Halen and Eric Clapton are not in my top 3.
Oh, I think said Eddie
They're
was.
in my top 10.
Oh, all right. So
what have we revealed so far? 1 top 10 for you, Chuck, right? 1 top 3 for you.
Yeah, Jimi Hendrix and Eddie Van Halen I have in my top.
And those
4.
are I've got those 2 in my top 3.
Len has 1. Mm-hmm. Okay, so one of mine is John Frusciante. I just really like his vibe. I like how soulful he is. I think he has a lot of interesting, funky, cool stuff that he brings to the table, and so he's definitely one of my top 3.
I had initially thought about him, but I took him off my list because one of my criteria was the band doesn't exist without him. And obviously,
yeah, they don't exist as well without them, but they do. Exactly. Yes.
But he's definitely got a unique sound. I like him a lot.
Yeah.
He's not in my top 10.
Not in my top 10 or my honorable mentions or whatever. All right. So all right, let's see. Let's play a little game. Chuck, who is one of the two remaining people on Len's top 3?
One of them is going to be somebody has to get. One of them is easy, and one of them nobody's going to get.
I already know Stevie Ray Vaughan's one of them for you. I want to say. Am I right on that?
So interestingly enough, I would say Stevie Ray Vaughan is probably number 4 in my list.
Okay.
I did a top 3, but
following instructions.
Even this morning before the podcast, I had Stevie Ray Vaughan ranked as number 3, and then I switched him out just right before I got here today. Okay. So Stevie Ray Vaughan is amazing. I love Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Yeah.
Jimmy Page, is that another one?
Jimmy Page is my number 2. Yep.
He is my number 2.
Okay. Jimmy Page.
Jimmy Page is my number 2 as well.
Unreal.
Actually, I'm sorry. I'm going to say Jimmy Page is probably my number 1. John Frusciante is my number 2. I just said we were in one of the top 3s, but I would say Jimmy Page is my number 1 guitarist.
He's Jimi, Hendrix, Eddie Van Halen, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Jimmy Page. Really not in any specific order. Maybe Jimi Hendrix number 1 because he was the first one to do it all.
For me, it's like, first of all, there's 0 Zeppelin songs that I don't like. I can listen to every single one of their albums, even Into the Outdoor, and just love the entire thing and enjoy it. He has such a monster sound, but he can also go super quiet and super chill, and he's got such a variety range of tone and depth and personality in his music. He's innovative, like, pulling out the bows to play Kashmir and
Whole Lot of Love.
Yeah,
all kinds of stuff.
Just amazing. And not only that, but then you look at all the riffs that he wrote. There's guitarists, then there's riff guitarists, and there's only a few people who you can go, man, this guy is a riff machine, and he is one of them. He just puts it out, and it's amazing.
He's definitely, I agree with everything you just said. And most innovative, versatile. He was all over the place with the variety, influences, and technique. I'm a big Zeppelin fan. There's not one I don't like. And the riffs that he put out were pretty incredible. Now, I know there is some controversy about how good he was of a lead guitarist, and I think he does have a lot of leads. Some of them, they do sound like a little off timing, and I think they could be better. I also think what
it's like he could probably play in the studio. He's a little bit off time right there.
Yeah. I know these things, but if you go through and you listen to them, you'll understand what I'm saying.
Because everyone knows how to play it, right?
He comes in to pick up a guitar. Like,
Stairway to Heaven.
Done something.
Yeah.
Yeah. But just think too about like the influence over time of almost any
hard rock.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Band guitarist that came after. That they owe something to Jimmy Page.
Yeah.
I mean, and obviously he could have on his own he could have did it, but that's another collaboration that just. Like the Van Halen collaboration where, with him and the rest of the band members, they just were at a whole nother level. They changed the game. I mean,
yeah,
super impressive.
Now, did you guys catch that? He's in the most excellent order of the British Empire. It's an order of chivalry rewarding contributions to the arts and sciences and work with charitable and welfare organizations and public service. So he sounds like just... Not only is he amazing at the guitar, he's also an all-around swell guy.
Yeah, 79. Just put all the Led Zeppelin partying past behind, and
I mean, so he tore up some hotel rooms. What?
And other things, yeah.
Thanks for keeping this PG.
Documents and trash bags.
So Len, did we now get your top 3? Or
you got my top 2: Jimi Hendrix, Jimmy Page.
All right, so who we missing?
Okay, I'll save my third. And let me just also say that I chose my top 10 based on rock and blues. I did not include jazz, mariachi, country, because I just don't have a very good knowledge base.
Dude, Steve Martin on the banjo?
Don't have him in my top 10 or my top 20 or my top whatever.
He's an honorable mention because he is just phenomenal.
Okay. So my number 1, Jimi Hendrix. Number 2, Jimmy Page. Number 3 for me is B.B. King.
Oh, all right.
Okay.
All right.
No one else on my list has named their guitar. That just for that reason.
Lucille, yeah.
Lucille. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have him.
Did anyone else have B.B. King?
I don't have him on my top 4. I would say he could definitely be an honorable mention, and I would say for blues, he had a unique style that nobody else had. He just going back, he, as one of the characteristics I put in there is fluidness and timing. So he was able to kind of like milk a note for as long as he can. Buddy Guy's really good at doing this too. Bring it to the next note, and a minute later he's only played 5 notes, but they just sound like they're so continuous.
Right.
Yet his timing was really awesome, and his tone is so very unique that it's him when he's playing.
So prolific.
Yeah.
He's been around.
Yeah, and
long playing guitar.
He was a huge influence, and not only that, not just his guitar, but his presence on stage was pretty strong.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he's a great singer too.
I have 3 pretty established blues guitarists. Obviously, you mentioned Buddy Guy, B.B. King. And the third one I put in there in my top 10 is John Lee Hooker. Man, he is amazing. You can't help but just, get enthralled or entranced or whatever when you listen to him, and you just kind of feel the music.
Does anybody have any unknowns in your top 10? Or maybe you know them, maybe other people don't.
Probably I do, yeah. But we haven't gotten through everyone's top 3 yet, have we?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't. But that's where my one of my top 3 is in this classification. You guys may or may not have.
Let's hear it.
Okay. So kind of a newer, definitely compared to like Jimi Hendrix, but I was blown away when I saw the video of this guy, Billy Strings. Anybody?
Newer guy, yeah.
Plays bluegrass and like.
Yeah, he's pretty impressive.
I mean, just phenomenal, and his name is very fitting. He is kind of country, kind of Americana, I should say, bluegrass. He's got a song, California Sober, that he does. It's a song featuring Willie Nelson. He won a Grammy a few years ago. Just amazing. So if nobody's ever heard of him, go check it out. I put him up there mostly because people have never heard of him, and I just thought he was the bomb. Anybody else have anybody that's...
So what's your top 3, Brett?
So in no particular order, Eddie Van Halen, Billy Strings, Jimi Hendrix. And I will go back to what I had asked earlier and what you kind of alluded to, Len, was I think so many of these people that you find as one of your favorite guitarists is because of the time in your life when you heard these people. Maybe it was the band. There was something going on. Maybe it was MTV, whatever. I've seen arguments that Eddie Van Halen was just an act, and he was good, but he wasn't great. That's not what I say, because I put him in my...
them pick up a guitar and do it.
Well,
right.
But other people that I think are fun, that I like, Joe Satriani, Stevie Vai, David Gilmour, I think they're all phenomenal. Chuck introduced me to the John Butler trio. John Butler is really entertaining guitarist. Yeah, definitely better than me.
You mentioned
Are these your top 10?
Yeah, these are all in my top 10. They're not. That's not my whole top 10, but go on.
You mentioned David Gilmour, and that's my number 3. That's my
David
top 3.
Gilmour, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'm a huge Pink Floyd fan, and I just like, the thing I like about him the most is that it's not so much what he plays, but what he doesn't play. It's like he can milk, like you were talking about Buddy Guy just milking his notes, and he just like. He just lets him out there, and he's not in any hurry to take you anywhere else. Like you're on his time and the solo, and that's it. And I just love how
the negative space.
Yeah, uses that space for it's such an emotional depth of tone and sound.
I agree with what you're saying, Aaron. And David Gilmour is probably the king of where to go in between the notes, as I like to say. And he will. I mean, he'll bring you on a journey, and he'll And there's no one that sounds like him, too. He definitely has a unique tone.
I love, like, Comfortably Numb.
Yeah.
Money, I just like the whole song, but...
I like Money.
Who doesn't? I did find it real quick that he credits Bob Seger, Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton, Jimi Hendrix, and Joni Mitchell, among other people, as influences on him.
You wouldn't know it, but he's got to come
right because he's so different, in my opinion.
He is.
But I mean, you got to learn somewhere. There's got to be somebody that you like. Yeah, that's awesome. I want to learn how to play that.
What I was gonna say about Pink Floyd is they have a unique sound altogether that they sound like nobody else, and I mean, even their tempo is definitely on the slower side.
Yeah.
They have that sound.
Mhm.
It just kind of draws you in.
So have you guys Paco de Lucia? Lucia? It looks like Lucia, but there's a Spanish guitarist.
Oh.
Holy
Classical?
crap. Yeah. He's another one. Like, Google one of his videos.
Yeah.
Like, holy fuck. He is so amazing on the guitar. Not somebody that I listened to. It was just one of those I found when I was looking up stuff, and I was like, I got to put this guy on the list. So mine are Paco, Joe Satriani, Stevie Ray Vaughan, John Butler, Eric Clapton, Steve Vai, and David Gilmour. That's the rest of the top 10 for me.
Okay.
I got some really good honorable mentions, but go ahead. What's in the rest of your top 10, Chuck? He's not prepared. Len,
I'm not. It's not that I'm not prepared, but I don't have it down to 10 people. Okay. Would you like to see my list, Brett?
no, Chuck. I believe that
He's now on a 30
homework.
on a 30 guitarist
teacher.
list. Top 30 guitarists. He's like, I'm going to beat Aaron on this one.
All right. So
while you're figuring out your top 10, I'll go. The remaining guitarists in my top 10. There's only one we haven't mentioned, but I'll go through all of them. Stevie Ray Vaughan, Eric Clapton, David Gilmour, Eddie Van Halen, Buddy Guy, John Lee Hooker, and Carlos Santana. Santana in my top 10.
I didn't think about Santana.
Yeah.
I got a bunch of guys. I don't know if I'd put them all in my top 10, but they're definitely on.
your top 100. Let's go.
Steve, we already talked about him. Satriani. Jeff Beck is one guy that hasn't come up yet. I'm kind of surprised we haven't talked about him. Nuno Betancourt from Extreme.
Their latest album, their latest single, man, is
Rise,
phenomenal,
Rise.
man. Yeah.
It is. It's pretty.
I have not heard that.
Gary Clark Jr. He definitely has a unique tone. Buddy Guy, I've already mentioned Clapton. This one's going to blow you away, but John Mayer. It's a very underrated guitarist. Derek Tedeschi and Trucks. Jerry Cantrell from Alice in Chains.
You know, I almost had him on my list as well. I wasn't sure. He was borderline, but just under my top 20.
I just think because he's so innovative.
I love his sound and tone, man. He just has
I think
good stuff.
Len will appreciate Bag Darrell. He's also one of my
very unique sound.
One of my favorites.
No, honorable mentions. There's some people who are really phenomenal guitarists, but maybe not up on top of the list. Aaron, what do you got?
We've only mentioned 2 of my top 10 other ones. So Jimi Hendrix and Stevie Ray Vaughan are in my top 10 as well. Brian May from Queen is one of my favorites. I just like, he built his own guitar. He kind of developed that tone and sound of his own, and it's really cool. Angus Young, underrated. Like, I don't know that he's really kind of out there as far as like this real technical player, but like, again, another riff god, and he just, I don't know that anyone else has, as him and Jimmy Page are probably the most riff heavy guitarists out there that you know.
Point.
So,
and an AC/DC song the second he starts.
Absolutely right. You just know it, and even if it's a bad AC/DC song, you know it. Slash, I think he is so technically skilled, and like he's a lot more bluesy than what you'd think for guitarists, like his genre.
I'm in the camp with Aaron. He's an honorable mention for me.
Yeah,
he definitely has his own tone.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't think Guns N' Roses exists without him. He has a persona. He
had attitude. Oh man. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Had a top hat.
And he
distinct look.
Even distinct Rose was gone.
Yeah.
Like, he continued on. Once Guns N' Roses fell apart, he went on and did multiple different projects.
Whoa, they broke up?
They're back together. Reunion tour.
Oh, sweet.
Get the money while you can.
I saw him a couple years ago.
How was it?
Soldier Field. It was actually pretty good, but I think I was actually more excited to see Alice in Chains play because they opened up for him.
Even with the new vocalist, Alice in Chains is amazing.
Dude, he's awesome.
He is.
The new vocalist is fantastic as well. I was surprised.
Yeah, he sounds great.
I really enjoyed their stuff.
How closely he sounds to Lane Staley. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So going back to Slash, I think Slash certainly has his contribution. Mm-hmm. He does have a very unique tone. I think people kind of don't give credit to Izzy Stradlin though, and how much he's contributed to that,
to the Guns N' Roses
that
sound.
rhythm and the sound of Guns N' Roses, and I think that's actually one of the reasons why he left. If you do some reading about him, but yes, I don't know if I'd put him in my top 10, but he certainly has a place.
Paul Simon is also in there, and I know that's not
Paul Simon.
List, but man, he just listen to some of his finger picking melodies there, and it's like, man, he's got a really
Graceland. Yeah, Graceland is one of my favorite albums of all.
Yeah, he's done a lot of. He's very versatile. I mean, he's done some really different successful stuff. You know,
I don't listen to him
and
a lot.
He's a good songwriter.
But when he comes on, I don't necessarily turn him off.
So. Was that the rest of your?
That was the rest of my top mentions? 10. Yeah, I have honorable mentions.
10. Yeah, give us a few of your honorable mentions.
Okay, so Johnny Greenwood from Radiohead, Matt Bellamy from Muse. I like both of their experimental side of things. I'm in an experimental kind of psychedelic rock band as well, and so I just kind of like that kind of stuff. And so I think they just bring a lot of interesting new tones and ideas, and kind of redefine what rock music can be and sounds like. My last one is one of those ones, Brett, you mentioned that like probably no one that knows about, but they should. And it's this guy out of Australia named Joe Robinson. I saw him about 10 years ago at a free show, and he just blew me away. Just phenomenal guitarist. It was almost like the guitar was an extension of his body, and he does this really cool harmonics finger picking thing. So take Eddie Van Halen, but then add harmonics to it, and it's just this really weird, trippy sound on the guitar, and it just sounds amazing. I have a lot of friends who are huge into music and that kind of stuff, and at this show, they were standing there just watching with mouth open, just like, oh man, this guy's amazing. So Joe Robinson, check him out. He's definitely worth a mention.
We haven't had any women on this list yet. I want to make sure we hit
women can play guitar.
We'll edit that out.
That's usually what Brett says.
Yeah,
it wasn't my question.
They're on my list.
I do have women on my list as well.
I think someone mentioned Joni Mitchell earlier. That's definitely one. But for me, a recent guitarist who I think is killing it is Nita Strauss.
She's on my list.
She's on my list as well.
She is so good.
Yeah.
She has toured with Alice Cooper. Mm-hmm. She toured with Demi Lovato and actually helped her turn her pop songs into rock songs and like shredded them.
Yeah.
And now she's just put out her second album. She's one of these, in the vein of like Satriani by whatever, in terms of like,
dude, she's 36
doing solo albums, but she got a bunch of singers to come and sing over her stuff. She's so good. Yeah. She's amazing.
Alice Cooper just announced that she's coming back to his tour.
Yeah.
So
I've met her a couple of times actually as well, and she's very nice. She actually gave us free tickets to come see her when Alice Cooper was in town, which was really cool.
Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah. Jerk. Oh yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Well, or you could have invited her on the podcast.
Yep.
Next time.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Two other honorable mentions. I had Slash. The other one I have is Tom Morello. I think he's got an incredibly unique sound.
I have no idea who the hell that is.
Rage Against the Machine.
Thank you.
You know what? I didn't even think about him.
No one can make the sounds he makes on a guitar, and he has just been incredibly experimental in terms of the types of noise you can get out of that guitar. Yeah. And I think without him, there's no Rage Against the Machine.
I agree with that.
He's so good.
You know what? Actually, he kind of almost bumps up. He's borderline kind of tied in my top 10. And I totally forgot about him, but I definitely will bump him up to my top 10.
And even when he went and did his solo stuff, it was like
The Night Watchman,
bluegrassy, bluesy. It was an entirely different style than Rage Against the Machine. You just saw a whole nother side of him.
Yeah.
I was
amazing.
Did you go and when you heard that he did solo stuff, you checked it out?
I remember seeing him in concert, and it was just him and a guitar on stage.
Did it blow you away that
it was so good?
Were you kind of like, what the fuck is this? Like, did you think that too at first or no?
No, I mean, I had listened to. I mean,
the fuck am I even doing here, man? I bought tickets to see this guy, and like, what the hell is he playing? Guitar?
Well, first of all,
I thought he was a pianist. This is not Billy Joel.
Totally different.
This is not Billy Joel. No, I mean,
when Billy Joel comes on here, you guys are going to be so mad that you talk shit.
An awesome shredder. Well, I didn't know that he did his solo stuff until probably a couple years after he did it. I was like, all right, you're thinking Rage Against the Machine comes at you like 100 miles per hour. Like, I want to see what he has. And I was just like, what happened to him? I'm not saying it wasn't good for what it was, but and I'm sure I'm not the only one that felt that way, but I was just surprised.
Yeah.
Which I think is what he wanted. He also played with Bruce Springsteen for I don't know how many years too. So he's all over the place. As far as what he's contributed, I think there really is no other guy like him.
Yeah.
Really, I mean.
Yeah, I thought, obviously you know him from Rage Against the Machine. So when you listen to Night Watchman, if that's what you expect, it's a surprise. But the political message is still there. That vein goes through all his songs. And didn't he also play guitar in Audio Slave?
Yeah.
Yes. When that band first came out, I'm like, how? I just couldn't picture Tom Morello and Chris Cornell together. Like, how is a collaboration going to work? And then when they came out, so.
All right. So, do you have anybody just? Well, I'm going to call it controversial on your list, on your honorable mention.
Yeah, I have one other that I think could spawn some conversation.
Okay. You even say the Edge.
Kirk Hammett.
Edge.
I'm gonna say Kirk.
Kirk Cameron?
Kirk Hammett.
I don't think he's controversial. He was gonna be in my top 10. I sometimes I get confused though. Who writes what?
Yeah, that's
because he does a lot of leads. Then he does a lot of his leads are from the Dave Mustaine and
a lot of the.
I know James. So I wonder what's his and what's not. Maybe it doesn't matter, but I think he's pretty awesome at what he plays. I think James Hetfield's worth a mention too. I mean, Dave Mustaine, even if you want to go that route, I mean, they're pretty good guitarists for what they are, right?
I considered all three of those for those reasons that you just mentioned, but.
Do you have anybody unique on your list that they'll Google?
I got some newer guys.
All right. What do you got?
I don't know if you guys are familiar with Polyphia. They're kind of...
It's a band name?
Yeah. They're newer, younger guys. Steve Vai influences, but they're a band.
Say it again. What's the name?
Polyphia.
Polyphia?
Yeah, Polyphia.
Oh, those guys are awesome.
Oh, now.
Yep. Tim Henson and Scott LePage. They're phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal guitars. And they're all over the goddamn place. I mean, from classical to rock to...
Really innovative and cool sounding stuff, too. Like, they kind of really explore some interesting things.
Bring it to a whole new level.
Yeah.
They're, if you ever will watch them and then you'll see musicians' response, they're just in awe and they're like, what the fuck did I just watch there?
It's exactly like what I was saying with Joe Robinson, like that kind of, these musicians stop and go, what are they doing here? It's crazy.
Yeah.
I had two other women on my list as well, just to mention. Bonnie Raitt is a phenomenal guitarist.
Oh yeah.
Bonnie Raitt, yeah.
And there's a lady called Samantha Fish who's touring right now, very bluesy, very vibey. Like
she's awesome.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, and so I highly recommend checking her out too as well. Like just really good stuff. Like she's had a song called "Heard It Through the Grapevine," and man, it's bluesy as hell, and it's cool. So I highly.
Not a remake.
It's a cover of the Grapevine song.
Okay. Anybody else?
I just got one other guy.
Okay, go ahead.
He's been around since 2007, but Tosin Abasi plays an 8-string guitar.
How do I know that name?
He's the guy who plays the 8-string guitar.
Oh, him. That guy.
He plays in Animals as leaders, and they don't sing, but him and the other guitarist go back and forth. But he plays bass, rhythm, and lead all together. He uses all of his fingers to strum or pick. It's pretty impressive. I do recommend checking him out.
All right.
The guitar alone is worth looking at.
I didn't hear anybody mention Lou Reed. Lou Reed's on my honorable mentions.
Sorry, who?
Seriously? Lou Reed?
Are we talking? This is the guitarist, right? Great guitarist, dude. Oh, all right.
Yeah. Velvet Underground guy,
To walk on the wild side. All right, Brad.
I think he was pretty good. Len, I'm surprised you didn't throw in Jack White. Is he out of your top 20?
Jack White is very prolific. He's got I like his style. I guess I would just say I didn't include him because for the same reason I wouldn't include George Harrison, is that it's a very simple chord structure, simple type of guitar playing, but it's used in an incredibly effective and amazing way. And I guess those are probably the reasons why I love them as guitarists, but probably they were not in my top 10.
I didn't realize. I did some research. He took his first wife's last name. That's where the White comes from, Jack White, she was the drummer.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Peg? Was her name?
Yeah. Everybody, they sold it as they were brother and sister, but it was his wife.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that.
Yeah. Now, somebody that had come up on a list that I saw, which I don't know that it would be even top 20, but I think talented, was Prince.
Oh, he was on my.
I'm going to agree with that because I think he's definitely an underrated guitarist.
Yeah. Well,
if you want to see the best of him, watch the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction when he plays with
Tom Petty.
I can't. Yeah, he plays with Tom Petty and.
Oh yeah, and George Harrison. They're doing the
they're playing
guitar. Oh my God!
Yeah, he does the lead to "While My Guitar Gently Weeps."
Oh,
he fucking
phenomenal.
kills it.
Man. Yeah,
and I think he just threw his guitar into the crowd. And
he owns the stage as well. Yeah, it's great.
He does. He does. It was awesome.
When I was younger, he was not my music,
right?
And so, but then to find out, like Purple Rain, like he did all the music on one of the albums,
or he knew how to play every instrument.
Yeah,
he pretty much wrote the whole song for everything.
I mean, he had a band like when he toured and stuff. I don't know which album it was, but he did all the music. Like that's awesome.
I was a kind of a latecomer to Prince myself. Like I didn't listen to him a lot. I knew the songs. I knew the popular ones, Purple Rain and When Doves Cry and that kind of stuff, like because they were on the radio all the time. But it wasn't something I had the album myself. I didn't listen to. And then when he played the Super Bowl,
that was a phenomenal show.
Yeah, and I was like, oh shit! I was not excited about him playing at first, and then I'm watching it. I'm like, damn, this guy can play. And that's when my opinion of him changed completely. And I went back and started listening to some of his stuff.
I think he was underrated. I'm not saying that he's anywhere close to being in my top 10, but he's definitely an honorable mention. That I saw that and I'm like, oh yeah.
I have a few other ones here that maybe people might have thought about. Keith Richards, Jerry Garcia, Alex Lifeson, and Lindsey Buckingham are all also on my list.
Those are all worth.
Who was the third one? I don't recognize that name.
Alex Lifeson is of Rush.
Yeah.
And Joe Perry is also on my list of Aerosmith. But I don't know that he stands out from a lot of the other ones, like I've seen Aerosmith a few times live and I was a really big fan of the band. I think he's got a couple of good riffs as well, but compared to Jimi Hendrix and Stevie Ray Vaughan and Jimmy Page, I don't think he shines with those. I think I see him as like the same level as Eddie Van Halen to me. And
Joe Perry?
Yeah.
I like Joe Perry. I can appreciate his earlier stuff though. I think he was more of his riffs were way better. The later stuff, I feel like it's good. He had some cool stuff, but it wasn't like as raw as like the earlier.
All right, well there you go. I think we've covered all of our list. Let's do a shout out to Maduro from Cigar City.
Yes, indeed, that was a pretty good beer.
Cigar City Brewing in Tampa, Florida. Maduro Brown Ale.
Yeah,
I thought that was good. It wasn't, it's no Bourbon County, but it's a good beer.
Yeah, decent one, I think, for the morning here. If you liked what you heard today and you want to hear more, you can check us out at aysm.show. You can check out all of our episodes. You can learn more about Brett and I, and maybe even see a couple of pictures of Chuck and Len on there as well.
You guys can also check us out on social media. Check out our Instagram and Facebook, and you can reach out to us. We'll do our best to try to get back to you. Don't hate us if we don't. I want to do a quick thanks to Chuck and thanks to Len for joining us once again. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks for letting us show you how to do it. I mean, we appreciate that.
If there were any guitarists on your list that you think should have been on our list, make sure you mention those in the comments. To prove us wrong. Send us some links. Let us see some of these amazing guitarists out there, and maybe even there's some people out there who are just doing the local band scene right now and are just killing it. Why don't you post them out there as well? Maybe that might be a fun thing for us to explore in a future podcast, as some knowns as well. So thank you for joining us. Brett, what are we talking about next?
Next time, we will be talking about